966.
We are pleased to welcome onto the 966 Mr. Aamer Sheikh, Chief Executive Officer of PepsiCo Middle East. Aamer has been with PepsiCo almost 25 years now. Not only has PepsiCo had enormous success in the MENA region and the Saudi market especially, it has also forged an incredible connection with the local community over decades in the kingdom. PepsiCo has a number of exciting projects and major announcements this year related to ESG, putting sustainability at the core of its strategy in the region. And we're very excited to talk about that in just a little bit. Aamer, it's an honor. Thank you so much for joining us on the 966.
Thank you, Lucien, and thank you, Richard, for having me on your show.
Greetings, Aamer. Yes, we are genuinely delighted to have you join us on the 966. Thank you. Lucien's intro is reliably comprehensive and well thought out. By the way, Aamer, thank you for being a listener to the 966. It's always encouraging. We've just been stunned and amazed by the audience we've gained and that it continues to grow because it's just been a really great experience.
The fact that you're talking about Hajj, the fact that you're talking about the Islamic New Year, these are the conversations nobody's having in the U.S. I grew up there. I know exactly. So you're bringing Saudi Arabia to people who may or may not be able to get to Saudi Arabia to see these things for themselves. And not just some of these things are not just limited to Saudi Arabia, but the impact is much wider for the Muslim community. So as a Muslim, as a Pakistani, as somebody who's living in Saudi, who is a U.S. national, you guys have become a part of my routine now. So what started off as, hey, you want to listen to these guys, they really know what's happening in Saudi Arabia too. I can't wait to listen to you guys now to see what else are you going to talk about.
As listeners and viewers of the show can confirm, we have frequently referenced PepsiCo on the show. Personally, when I first lived in Saudi in the 1980s, I drank a lot of Pepsi, but more importantly, became aware of sort of PepsiCo's long and deep involvement in the kingdom. More recently, though, and this speaks to what Lucien and I are trying to do, as we have built an audience for the show, and we sought out guests that we think are interesting, we've discovered that in almost every direction we look, you guys, PepsiCo is involved. And examples of this. So we prioritize featuring young Saudi entrepreneurs, PepsiCo, actively supporting this sector. We try to platform Saudi women as they increasingly engage in the kingdom's economy. Again, PepsiCo has programs for this. We champion American commercial and economic interests in Saudi Arabia. PepsiCo is deeply involved with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, AmCham, KSA, and other strong advocates of U.S. business. So I know, and I hope we can get to these. These are initiatives that are only part of what you're doing in Saudi Arabia. But we have to be honest to our listeners and our viewers that I think it's fair to say that you had us at hello in terms of this episode. And before we get, we're going to get to PepsiCo's long history. But before we do, we'd like to learn a little bit about your background. As Lucien mentioned, you've been with PepsiCo for close to 25 years, became CEO in Middle East in early 2022. Can you bring us up to speed about your PepsiCo journey?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. So I'm, if I start from my background early days, I'm a Pakistani-American who's been in the Middle East for the last 18 years or so. So when somebody asks where's home, it becomes quite a tricky question. So I started my education Loyola University of Chicago. So I grew up in the States. And then at some point after my career journey with Ernst & Young, Disney, I ended up in Pakistan and I joined PepsiCo there back in 1999, so almost 25 years ago. And in fact, I started in finance function. So from there, from a country CFO to a region CFO, and eventually I became a sector CFO. So the first 19, 20 years of my journey were in the finance function. So, and then I thought, okay, I've done this well. This has worked well for me, learned a lot. I've been mentored by a lot of great managers, a lot of great GMs. So it's almost my turn to pay back and see what's it like to be in the number one position when the buck stops with you and you're responsible for not just delivering results, but really developing people and the next generation of talent. And at the same time, creating a legacy, a set of projects that will be there long after you've come and gone. So it's really about the impact that you can have as a chief executive. So back in 2020, I put my hand up and say, hey, I've done finance for 20 years. Now I would love to try a commercial role. And kudos to PepsiCo, who took a chance, who took an opportunity. And they said, look, why don't you look after the Middle East, North Africa, and Pakistan business? So I did that for the first couple of years. And then early 2022, we decided to put our beverages and foods business together as one team looking after the current geography, which is really GCC plus Levant. I have all the 6 countries of GCC, as well as Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan. And I have a large team and a very capable team and an awesome team that really helps me manage this business and drive the agenda that we have. And some of that you talked about. And think of, while our focus today is Saudi, think of the impact, similar impact we're having in countries, neighboring countries as well, both within GCC as well as in Levant area.
Well, let's talk about this. Is fascinating because PepsiCo has this long history, but you arrive at a time in 2022 when you're making a significant change, merging the beverage and the foods together. Can you talk about how you approach that and why it was decided this was critical to building the business?
Yeah, so this was about the same time. Saudi government and the Ministry of Investment was talking about the regional HQ program. And we saw that as an opportunity to say in Saudi Arabia, though we've been present for 60 years plus, we've been present as a beverage business or as a foods business, but we've never really put together PepsiCo identity in Saudi Arabia. So the opportunity was for me to come across and be in Saudi and be the face of PepsiCo with all our stakeholders. So the idea is to both with the government as well as with our customers and in fact other stakeholders, how do we come across as one PepsiCo that is driving a much richer and much powerful agenda than just the individual snacks and beverages business.
That's fascinating, and especially in the context because you have this 60 plus year history. It's the largest non-Saudi food and beverage conglomerate in the kingdom. But you're talking about an identity. So when you decided, you made the decision we're going to merge these two sectors, but you also talking about establishing an identity vis-a-vis both Saudi Arabia, the community, all the people you service and sell to. What is the identity that you'd like to have?
So, historically, we've been in our foods business. We've been here for more than 25 years, beverages more than 60 years. However, our identity was merged with some of our partners as well. We have fantastic business partners on the beverages side, some of the leading families, Al Jumeirah family, Al Bukshan family, as well as Katani's family. So when we approach the government, we approach as the sum of 3 family businesses that are franchisees, plus the Saudi snacks business, which are company owned. So you're diluting your footprint, you're diluting your focus, and you're also diluting the impact that you could have. So if you then just take a step back and say to the government, look, as PepsiCo, this is what we bring to the party. We have collectively 9,000 plus employees. We have been operating for more than 60 years. We are, us as our brands in beverages as Pepsi, 7-Up, Mirinda, Mountain Dew, Aquafina, or Lay's, Cheetos, Doritos, and Quaker Oats, right? But now, help us help you. So we want to be the strategic partner for Saudi government to enable Vision 2030 transformation. So if you think about where the Saudi government is going, it's all about, focus on, expanding beyond the oil economy that we had historically. So as you develop tourism, as you develop entertainment, as you focus on women empowerment, as you focus on youth development, as you think about sustainability, well, all of those boxes are being ticked by PepsiCo as part of our vision and as part of our PepsiCo positive strategy. So with the government, you can paint a much more compelling picture of us as a credible partner. Now, if you think about the customers now are seeing the power of PepsiCo portfolio as one entity. Take any of the modern trade customers such as Panda or Otem or Danube. The conversation with them is no longer about just beverages or just foods. It's really about the power of PepsiCo portfolio that can allow them to turn their store into shopping theaters for their consumers. And the same way with our consumers, by bringing together Power of One programs, you're offering a lot more to our consumers other than just a beverage or just a snack. let's face it, if you're having a snack, you're thirsty, you're probably reaching out to a Pepsi beverage anyway. If you're planning for a party, you're buying PepsiCo snacks and PepsiCo beverages. So why not enable it to really have that as a one purchase?
Well, first of all, can I do a shout out to the Al Jomaih Group? The Al Jomaih Group is a long-standing corporate sponsor of Saudi U.S. Trade Group, and you're exactly right. High quality operation, great people. So it's really interesting coming together because you're talking about branding and that sort of thing, but it feels very much like PepsiCo was very early on the significant mindset, the change in mindset the Vision 30 has introduced. And we talk about this on the show a lot. We have guests who come on and talk about, everything. My paradigm has shifted, from 7 years ago, 2016, or even when it started to bite, 2018, whatever. It feels like Saudi Arabia there's a brand aspect in terms of commercial sales, but there's also a reputational aspect. And this is this is what I refer to when every time we turn to go to find somebody interesting, it seems like PepsiCo is involved in some way in that sector. So I guess what's the proper term? Is this community outreach? Is it ESG? Is it something else?
Yeah, we actually call it PepsiCo Positive. And if I take a step back, our mission is to really bring smile to our consumer with every sip and every bite, right? And we want to be the number one FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods company in Saudi Arabia. To enable that, we have to be faster, stronger, and better. Faster means we have to win in the marketplace. Stronger means that we have to develop capabilities and really bring all our culture, costs, and transform that part of our business. But better is really about bringing purpose to the commercial agenda. Now, some of the companies will look at sustainability or ESG as something you do on the side to support your commercial business. For PepsiCo, that is the heart of our business. So every business decision is guided by our PepsiCo Positive strategy. That means you have to really start with operating within planetary boundaries, and you have to really think of your strategies that are good for people, but also good for planet. So when you come across like that, then you think about, as the leading FMCG business in Saudi Arabia, we have a responsibility and we have a duty to really bring the power of PepsiCo to all aspects of our business. So our brands are already number one. Our brands are already part of the consumer fabric. But the Saudi consumers and elsewhere are really looking for a lot more from their brands. They want their brands to be purpose-driven. They want their brands to stand for something. So when we do a sponsorship of, let's say, a Formula E, event in Saudi Arabia, and we have Aquafina sponsoring that, it's not just about making your product available or making your water available in that event, but it's also making sure that you're collecting all the plastic that is being generated in that event, and you're diverting that plastic away from landfills. So to me, that's really an example of how you're bringing the power of your brand to do something good for the environment as well. And these two are no longer two separate things. They're part and parcel of, that's how we approach the market. So you want to be in the Saudi fabric. You want to be where the youth is. You want to be part of the Saudi priorities. And as I said earlier, with women empowerment, youth development, and sustainability, those are really the sweet spots for us within our PepsiCo Positive agenda.
So and me, because I want to understand, so the PepsiCo Plus is environmental sustainability, primarily circular economy focused. Your other programs, for example, The Future is Saudi, which I'm happy for you to talk about, or Tamakani. Yeah. These are youth empowerment focused, women empowerment focused, and if you can talk a little bit about those programs, if you'd like, and also, why they were chosen and how they're coming along.
Yeah. So, we sort of put all our activities together under this umbrella called Proudly Saudi. So the fact that we've been here for 60 years, providing employment to Saudi national, developing our own women talent, developing our own Saudi talent. How do you take it outside our four walls and really bring that expertise to the larger community that we operate in? So what we did was we created two distinct programs. Future is Saudi. That's really about youth development. This is where we partner with Astrolab and Ministry of Communication and IT, and we sponsored 100 startups to really help them get better in e-commerce. So if the winning for them is in the e-commerce marketplace, how do you equip them with the right skill set to be able to compete at a global stage? So similarly, we've done programs to develop youth skills, and we're doing with some of the other stakeholders to equip youth of today with the skill set that will help them develop and grow in the marketplace. But what I'm really proud about is our program, Tamakni. Tamakni is to enable. So this is really about women empowerment. We launched this back in 2019, and since then we've been, figuring out how do we develop, how do we inspire, and how do we grow a generation of women, in line with the Vision 2030. So what we did was, it has 3 programs: amplifying voices, facilitating mentorship, and fostering entrepreneurship. So if I talk about amplifying voices, so in partnership with Family Affairs Council, we launched this Mazen podcast. The Mazen podcast is for women, by women. What you're doing is you're showcasing leading women of Saudi society, including some of our own employees, to talk about their professional journey, their success stories, to really inspire other women. And you're giving them space to also talk about their personal journey, to talk about what was it like for them to grow in a not so women-friendly world and develop and really hold their own and get to those leading positions. So to me, that's amplifying voices. You're inspiring people by telling stories. Then when you get to the mentorship, this is where we partner with AmCham and with Ken Blanchard companies, and we created this Women in Business network. So what you're trying to do is you're looking at the needs of Saudi female talent and the AmCham members, and you're working together to develop their skill set to be better leaders in the chosen field. And our third area was fostering entrepreneurship. This is where I think you had Ragad on your podcast, many episodes ago. And this is WIN Fellowship in partnership with Atlantic Council. And this is a leadership development program with Georgetown University, where you're benefiting, again, the local Saudi female talent to have those leadership skills to be more successful entrepreneurs and really build scale businesses. And the top 5 WIN fellows actually get to go to the US to have a personal journey and personal networking. So, and that's just the example of what we're doing in Tamakni. The funny thing is, you've had individuals who've been part of this different programs on your show, so you heard bits and pieces. But this is really, if I were to say, that those are the 3 pillars of our Tamakni program that's been out there for the last 4 years. And our objective is to develop 1 million women through that program and really upskill them and give them the tools and opportunities to really be successful in the world out there. And we're very much there with having impacted more than 100,000 women already, that directly, and then many more through the outreach of Mazen podcast.
Yeah, and Shams Al-Shabi is a good friend as well. She does such a great job with that podcast. I just wanted to give her a quick shout out because it's an amazing podcast, and it's in Arabic, but it's fantastic.
Absolutely, and shout outs because Aamer, you mentioned previous episodes in the 966 exactly, and this is Sarah Bin Laden, Renato Jeffrey, WIN fellows have been on the show. Just recently, Dana Al-Jalani is co-chairman of the Women in Business Committee at the American Chamber, AmCham KSA. Just really outstanding people. Yes, we've had you encircled, Aamer. We've been getting closer and closer. I'm interested in 2 things, really, and let's stay with this, and I'll come back to the other one. PepsiCo must be tracking responses to these programs. In other words, as you look out after you've introduced these programs, you mentioned 2019, do people perceive the company differently? Do they feel like it's even more invested than it was? What is there a read that you've gotten on it?
Yeah, look, it's very powerful for the women that go through these programs. They're certainly super appreciative. It's very powerful for our own employees to be part of a company that is actually doing this thing for society. But to be honest with you, it's still a drop in the ocean. there's a lot more work to be done by PepsiCo, by companies like PepsiCo to really transform. I'll give you an example. In our own organization, our objective is to have gender parity, 50% of globally, 50% of a manager to be women by 2025. Globally, we're about 43%, I think there. In the Middle East, we're about 34%. The challenge is, you have some amazing female talent coming through universities, coming through early in their career, and you're pretty good by mid-management level. But it's the mid-management onwards and the senior leaders, they're just not that many to go around amongst all the stakeholders who are looking for great female talent, right? So if it's not for companies like PepsiCo to really step in and start developing that talent, start helping AmCham and really some of the other companies to come together and really develop a program to drive this agenda, I think we're going to be selling ourselves short. We're going to be saying something without really delivering against it. So our focus is very clear. If this is something that we need to do as part of PepsiCo Positive, we need to bring all our energy to make it happen. So it's not just fancy words, but we actually publish our report card against some of these initiatives on an annual basis, and we hold ourselves accountable, to speed up where we may not be in line with our targets, and where we are ahead of the targets, we want to make sure we stay that way.
You may have mentioned it. Of your 9,000 employees, what percentage are Saudi? I saw a figure, but I'm not sure I recall.
So in our Saudi foods business, which is directly owned by us, about 43% is our Saudi national. What's very interesting is in our plant, we actually have Saudi females as some of the first. So we have the first female plant manager for Riyadh. We had the first female forklift truck driver. And we also had first set of females working in our second shift. So allowing more opportunities for women to join the industrial workforce. And what I'm also proud of is that we have been able to provide employment opportunities to hearing impaired individuals, people with special needs, and we have conducted sign language training for our other employees to be able to communicate to them. So it's, to me, the holistic agenda is, if you're part of a community, you want to make sure every member of that community has an equal opportunity to be part of your workforce.
You referenced the regional HQ program earlier. Was PepsiCo headquartered in Riyadh?
So we were one of the first signatories, to the regional headquarter program, and we saw an opportunity to be able to, as I mentioned earlier, bring our foods and beverages businesses through that program. So yes, I relocated as part of that program, to Riyadh.
Yeah, and my understanding is that the first movers are enjoying the fact that they were first movers, because those coming a little later in the pipeline aren't getting such a warm reception.
Yeah. Well, MESA have been actually fantastic partners to us, and shout out to them. You guys were talking about Hajj recently in one of your shows. So they had actually invited some of the Muslim CEOs, and I was one of them who was able to join them for the Hajj this year.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So we're halfway through, and we'll step back and maybe look at what's going on in Saudi Arabia, if you like. We're halfway through from the announcement of Vision 2030 to 2030.
Right.
We had an interesting conversation with a friend of ours, a lawyer friend of ours, late in 2022. And he was saying, I'm watching this. I'm seeing a lot of things. Big things going to start happening in 2023, where you're actually going to see things happening, that the groundwork has been laid. But anyway, how, in your, as a head of a major U.S. corporate, what do you see in terms of this progress, this trajectory that they're on?
Yeah, I get goosebumps talking about some of this, because if you've not been to Saudi, you haven't really seen the scale of the change that's happening. And just for our listeners, let me just put in perspective. When I talk about Qiddiya, and I had an opportunity to meet with the senior management of Qiddiya to talk about their plans, they talk about bringing 70 assets. So I'm like, okay, so what's an asset? Well, the biggest theme park of Six Flags is one of those 70 assets, right? Formula One could be the other, water park could be third. So the scale at which this development is taking place is unprecedented. And for those of us who are in Saudi Arabia at this time of our lives, you actually have front row seats to something that is groundbreaking, that is revolutionary, that I'm not sure has been done like that. So my question to them was, what's your inspiration? What are you trying to create in Qiddiya, which is about what, 40, 45 kilometers outside Riyadh? They said Orlando. I'm like, which part of Orlando? They're like, no, Orlando. Okay. So, how do you get your head around that in the middle of the desert, there's going to be another Orlando that, at some point in the future, people will make plans to come visit and enjoy, the activities that they will have on offer. How's the work? Well, we're actively engaged in discussions with Qiddiya management team. The work is ongoing. And then we had an opportunity to see another giga project, which was the Raya Gate late last year when our CEO was in town. Again, it's there, it's happening, and it's a beautiful area for people to walk around and enjoy. So to me, when we hear NEOM and some of the other projects where people are not able to get there easily and see the progress with their own eyes, there are many, many projects in the middle of Riyadh, in the middle of Jeddah, where you are seeing development at a very fast pace. King Salman Park is another one of those. Busy, it's happening. So I think you're going to see, I'm not sure about 2023, but certainly over the next 2 to 3 years, a lot of these projects will come online. And I think people who are, perhaps not sure or not necessarily buying into the development agenda will say, well, I didn't know this was happening. I didn't know that these kinds of developments were taking place. I'll talk another thing, fine dining restaurants. Just overnight in Riyadh, the areas have sprung up with some amazing restaurants that, you can compare Riyadh restaurant scene to almost anywhere in the world, where you can get all kinds of cuisines with high quality food. It wasn't there a couple of years ago. So while in COVID, I think everybody was working from home, there were a certain group of people that were very busy putting all of this, together. So I'm seeing change, at a quite fast pace, but you have to be here to really believe it, to see it. And I think those who are coming in and out are seeing consumers change, are seeing the habits change at a much faster pace. I'll give you another example. We had a talk with 6 sort of females, who are in different field or leaders in their own, areas. And we were sort of asking them about the change pace and how a company like PepsiCo should really be, encouraging or responding to that pace and that change. And I think what I was surprised to hear was that, they're all leaning on each other to figure out how far can they push the envelope, right? So some of this is uncharted territory, even for them. So the pace of change is at such a fast pace. Those who are actually in the middle of the change are trying to figure out that, am I at the middle point? Am I just starting off, or am I near the end, right? So how should the society and the social norms and the behaviors, how should they be changing to, in line with the rapid change that's happening in Saudi?
Your reference of Orlando vis-a-vis Qiddiya, it was interesting because I'm sure you're aware, the Crown Prince Mohammed, said our point of reference for the line in NEOM is Miami.
I heard that, yeah.
And we constantly comment on this. I think we don't fully understand the aspirations, how ambitious they are. It is extraordinary to see what's going on in Saudi Arabia, and Time Out, which is a publication that has monitored ranked restaurants and dining opportunities globally for 50 years, came out with their first Time Out Riyadh this past year, reflecting what you're saying. It's just the options and the opportunities have just exploded.
So we actually hosted the first Time Out Restaurants Award last year. It was sponsored by PepsiCo. So
I just want to point out once again PepsiCo's
It's
involved with
everywhere.
everything good going on in Saudi Arabia.
Well, the thing is, our products, our beverages and foods are really part of Saudi society. I mean, Pepsi is synonymous with beverage of choice for every individual. So we do, we take pride in that, but we don't take the responsibility lightly. You have to stay ahead. You have to continue to delight and continue to put smiles on your consumer. That means you really need to be where they are. And if Saudi Arabia is going to be one of the top 5 tourist destinations in the world, well, guess what? We want to be part of that excitement as well.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your partnership with Astrolabs? It's really fascinating, and I'm sort of interested in how that works. And is PepsiCo Middle East investing in some of the businesses that mature into e-commerce startups, or are you just providing the support?
Yeah, well, so we're providing the support. So by working with Astrolab, what we did was we identified 100 entrepreneurs who had businesses at various levels. And through their help and through the help of Ministry of Communication and IT, you put them through a series of skill building activities. To give an example, how do you do contracting in an international environment? How do you do marketing? What should be the look and feel of your website? So you're equipping them with the skill set to allow those entrepreneurs to compete at a global stage. And to me, the beauty is that anybody sitting, can start a business, from their homes, but they may not be able to take it global without the help of people like us. So I think we've been fortunate that I rattled out so many different names of our partners and stakeholders that we're finding partners who share our purpose, who share our vision, and who are very happy to partner with PepsiCo to say, yes, we're in it, in this with you, and we're going to make it happen. And Lucian, I'll also talk about Greenhouse Accelerator Program because that's similar to that. What we did last year is we said we want to be able to drive circular economy, and our vision is for plastic bottle to eventually become a plastic bottle again, and to divert it away from landfill. So what you do is you're looking at partners that can help you drive consumer awareness. So today, there are many compounds in Riyadh where we're actually collecting plastic. Then you're looking for partners that can collect that and divert it away from landfill. So Wesco comes in, and we're doing that. So what we did was we created this Greenhouse Accelerator Program to say, we don't have all the answers. Who are the startups that are operating in this space? And out of 70 applications, we identified 10. We gave them a $20,000 grant, and we put them through a 6-month program through mentors that were PepsiCo employees, and some external mentors as well. And then we selected one of the companies that was able to really make the best progress in those 6 months. We're able to scale the business model, and that's Nadira. That is now pan Middle East company that is really collecting plastic and other waste from different sources and diverting it away from landfill. So we've been fortunate to create these programs, find like-minded partners, and being able to make meaningful progress.
Sort of similar vein in terms of local partnerships. So, and you mentioned some of your partners, Al Jomei, Akatani, Bakshan, going back many years, decades. I guess all of Pepsi's products are produced in Saudi Arabia, correct?
That is true. That is true. Not only so on beverages and foods, all of that Pepsi products is here, but we are also a major agro player. So so not only do we make our products here, but we make our products from Saudi potatoes. So if you get into the agro space, again, you'll find PepsiCo name there quite prominent.
And I think that's fascinating because that draws you into a whole nother train of sustainability issues, and you're getting into water as well.
True.
I mean, trying to be responsible, and the purview of PepsiCo is enormous, and it's got to keep you busy day and night.
But Richard, that actually is one of the pillars of PepsiCo Positive, which is positive agriculture. So globally, we have something like 7 million acres under our stewardship. So the idea is that how do you make sure that you're treating that land with care, you're looking after it, and then you're also minimizing the amount of water that we're using. So the key is to be able to take the responsibility seriously and work with our farmers, work with our local communities to be able to drive that agenda.
Just fascinating stuff. Mr. Aamer Sheikh, Chief Executive Officer of PepsiCo Middle East. Thank you so much for your time. This was fascinating and excellent.
Thank you. My pleasure.